Everyone, Mo Sapebhari, Akash Tiwari, and with me, I have Gravity Glue, aka Michael.
My name's Michael Grab, and I am a professional stone balancer.
I know you are more into the spiritual side, more artistic side, and I know you hate this question, but it's just from our end because this is the one question we ask to every artist, sports person, entrepreneur, whoever comes on a podcast. That as an artist, like, how are you earning? How are you surviving? Because you're doing this full time as a stone balancer, so it's quite interesting. How are you, making a living?
Well, I never really tried to turn it into a business. It was more, I mean, it's always been kind of an obsessive passion of mine, so I just kept practicing every day. And eventually it just kind of picked up steam on the internet, and the work started going around with media around the world and started getting emails from people to do live performances. Sometimes I sell photography and things like that. But pre-pandemic, I was traveling a lot to Asia to do live performances for like corporate events and things.
And all the other calendar and all that stuff as well, right? Your own merchandise and stuff.
Yeah, each year I release a calendar, and that is also
By the way, why not India? Like you traveled to Asia, you came to China. Why not India?
just no one has invited me yet.
Damn.
Like most of
Okay.
my clients in Asia have been around Shanghai and China, and I've talked to a few people in like Singapore and Hong Kong, but just like nothing has gone full circle yet.
Okay, okay. So maybe I'll be the first person to call you in India with
Yeah,
some
yeah,
maybe.
maybe.
Maybe. Yep. So, Michael, like I loved your art when I was. So I'll tell you, I am honestly saying this. I had no idea about stone balancing, right? I was just exploring Instagram and I just came across one of your picture and I was like, oh damn. Then I started researching about you, and then there was like, okay, damn, this person is doing it since 13 years. Wow, why don't I know this? Obviously, your art completely is an interesting thing, but one more interesting thing is like after you finish all the stone balances, after a few seconds, like once you're done with clicking pictures, you drop it, right?
There's nothing that I've made that still exists. Like everything I make is completely temporary, and it's just kind of part of working with land art in general or nature art, and it just goes along with the nature of nature, which is like everything's constantly changing. Stone balancing is just a very transient kind of thing because it's so precarious. So usually they'll blow down in the first wind or breeze even. The only records that last are just whatever I record on video and photo.
When you're making this stone art, like when you're balancing it, right, you're completely present in the moment, completely 110% present in the moment. But has it ever happened to you in this whole 13 years where your mind was not that open, where you were not present?
Um, well, it's hard to reduce it to like such a black and white thing, like completely open or not. It's kind of a spectrum. Like my mind is busy just like anyone else's, but I think part of the process for me is just going out in nature and just kind of sitting in that space. Like especially down at the creek here, like the sound of the flowing water just really helps kind of ease the mind into that meditative space. And even while I'm working and balancing, like I'm focusing on these really tiny vibrations the whole time. But like there's all these thoughts in my head that still happen or just kind of come up naturally, but it just kind of flows through me and I just keep working. So I don't know, like as the focus deepens, I would say just the meditation also deepens.
Because there are a lot of times people struggle to be in present, like even I struggle to be in present, right? But then when I was watching your work, I thought, okay, this guy is completely 110% present. So are you saying that when you're working on your stone balancing, there are times where your mind is not completely 110% present, there are still thoughts going on?
I don't know, like part of the process is just kind of getting into this flow state, which is kind of a state of presence that's not exclusive of thoughts coming up and going through my mind. But like being in that flow state is kind of a ritual practice, I guess. So just being in that space and being in nature and getting in tune with all the vibrations and everything is very much a flow state. And just with all the other stimulus going on in the environment, it's kind of counterproductive to prevent thoughts from coming up because they're just going to come up regardless of what I do. And it's whether or not I cling to those thoughts and stick with them or just let them kind of flow through and just continue what I'm doing with the vibrations and stuff. So yeah, just with all the practice, it's pretty easy to just kind of let those thoughts come and go without them really being a thing. Well, I don't know, it's not really like an on and off switch. Like when I started in 2008, I still had a job and I had a regular job until 2012, and I just fell in love with this practice and kept doing it pretty much in all my free time. And when by 2012 I just kind of decided I didn't have enough time to go to work, so I quit. I mean, it's always kind of an evolutionary process. It's not just like a big step and all of a sudden everything's changed. Like, I'm a lot different than I was maybe a year ago, and 2 years ago, and 3 years ago. And there's definitely evolutionary phases in my artistic career. But in another view, like, I'm still the same person. Like, the person I am today is because of the person I was yesterday. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of is cumulative, I would say.
What is the definition for creativity for you?
Creativity. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that I would say is impossible to define. It's more kind of like a force of nature that flows through you. And like when you look at a creative person, you're looking at kind of like a vessel who has a certain amount of openness to that creative flow. Like my most recent project that I destroyed yesterday, I had no idea that I was going to build it a few days ago, and it just kind of happened. Because I got into that kind of flow and just kind of ran with it, and without thinking about like the outcome or whatever destination or anything like that. I just kind of went with the flow of the moment in the space. And it's not something I tried to do at all. It was just kind of like a natural creative flow. Like I intended to balance rocks and I ended up building a wall. So I don't know, like
Then why did you like? I came across somewhere where you made this statement like, slowly the creative output is getting less. Like you're not getting that much creative output as you were getting before.
I wouldn't say the creative flow is low. It's more just kind of the material output, I guess. Like I'm focusing a lot more energy on specific creations versus just going kind of like one off every day. When I first started, that's what I would do is I would just kind of build something new every day. And as the skill develops, there's a lot more nuance that comes into play as far as the creative process and what I'm actually satisfied with for my own skill and my own aesthetic. Like I'm not going to build the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know, it's just a very organic process. Like it started maybe like 10 creations per day and then one per day and then one per week and then um yeah, like I don't know, it's kind of hard to quantify because like I've learned that the creative process I can't really control. Like I can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go out and make something now." Like there's a lot more listening involved for like various signals or cues in the environment and like what grabs my curiosity and what am I willing to pursue and things like that. It's like there's a much more nuanced process nowadays where like I have all those past experiences in my mind and those kind of feed into today's creation. But from a material standpoint and like the viewer, it looks like slower and slower. but like the wheels are still turning kind of at the same rate.
Yeah,
It's just
of course.
like
Yep, yep.
um, it's just like I'm focusing so much more energy on certain things instead of like dispersing it between like all these different things. So the last project I was working on, I spent about 4 days just working with it without really an endpoint in mind, and then spontaneously yesterday I just went back and destroyed it all.
So most of the time you don't have an endpoint when you start things.
No, no, no. I almost always just go until I feel satisfied with that creation. Or like like usually curiosity is the force that kind of gets me into some kind of creative wave. And then like I'll make something and then take photos and I'll come back and review footage and figure out, oh, I want to do that differently. And then I'll go back the next day and maybe do that differently, but maybe a cloud will come by and the light won't be as nice, so the photo won't be as nice. So maybe the next day,
It's
oh,
quite also risky. Maybe the next day also someone might also destroy it before you. Like, has that ever happened? Like, you're working on some projects and the second or the third day someone you came and the creation is not there.
sometimes, like usually I'll take things down at night,
Oh, okay, got it.
or else I'll leave the place at sunset when it's getting dark, and then return first thing the next morning if I leave it up. But usually if I do leave it up, it's just kind of like a matter of wind blowing and it usually knocks it down.
What is your daily routine, like a daily life of a stone balancer? How you start your day, and then what is the process when you start creating? Also, what is your process?
Well, first thing I do is I make coffee in the morning.
Oh shit! Yeah, it's morning there.
No, I mean, I destroyed my project yesterday, so today I'm kind of in a more relaxed state. I don't really need to go anywhere, and plus I just have a lot of work to do at home with like email and like catching up with different people and things like that.
Hmm.
So I don't know, that's part of the whole creative flow is that I don't like to force it at all. I just finished something yesterday that I was out at the spot all day, every day for like almost a week. And now that I destroyed it, it's kind of like one of those ebbs in the creative flow. And it's just like now I can kind of absorb that experience or kind of integrate it a little bit. But yeah, I don't really have a goal to get outside and make something new today.
Damn.
It's good to take breaks and
Yep.
rest.
Yeah, I trust me, I can understand that. So this is my second last podcast because I have exhausted myself so much for a month now that I was not able to read also. Like if I was recording something, a content piece, I was not able to read. I needed to retake a read as well. So I was like, okay, I need to take a break, and yeah, it's important to take a break. So your day starts with coffee, and then
Yeah, I don't know, coffee, breakfast. Sometimes I'll just kind of hang at home and edit photos on my computer, or usually like communicate with various potential clients or whatever, and just kind of get whatever responsibilities I have out of the way in the morning. And then by about noon, I'll try to be outside, kind of in the creative space and just kind of take it from there. um, and I just usually pack up my gear and get on my bike and go find a spot at the creek and just kind of like look for rocks and just hang out.
what is this 3 point of contact? Like 3 point contact.
Well, the balance itself, like 3 points of contact, is basically just talking about the edges in the rocks that I'm using. Like anything to stand needs kind of 3 points, like a tripod. So
Got it.
I'm looking for some kind of notch in a rock that has like the right edges to where I can center it over 3 points like that.
Okay. So that is that the just the base rock, or for every rock there should be a 3 point contact like a tripod?
Well, no, I mean a lot of it is like spending time looking at the rocks and finding. I mean, you could balance pretty much any rock, but as far as like aesthetics and kind of the technical level that I'm going for. Like there's a lot of time that I spend looking for the right edges in the right rocks, and things will fit together better than others. And yeah, I just when I go out and I'm looking for rocks, I don't really look for rocks. I just kind of they almost find me. Like I'll
Got it.
see one and it just grabs my attention, and all of a sudden, like, oh, that rock is worthy of more consideration. So I'll look at it and see if it has like some edges that might work out for what I might want to use it for or whatever. Yeah, usually I'll collect maybe like a group of maybe like 7 to 10 rocks and just put them in one space, and then make myself a little seat and then sit down and start balancing them, just kind of trial and error. And sometimes it won't work out for several hours or like some days even, but eventually it just kind of like turns into something like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I'll photograph it a little bit and be like, oh, but it could be a little bit better. And so I'll take it apart and like maybe add a rock or take away a rock or change an edge or just kind of any number of things in just kind of this organic creative process of basically just following whatever curiosity I have or whatever I want to realize.
I love how you play with that. So I don't remember the name of the project, but I like the huge stone with the tip.
Oh yeah, that one.
It kind of looks like an axe for me, but yeah. So it's like I was just trying to decode it. Ki, okay, is it something here? Is it how is it standing? Like what is it like? How did you get the balance so accurate? It's in the complete center, right?
It's just kind of that same process of trial and error and working with the rocks and finding something that works. Um,
So is the science right? Like the balance should be center, like in every all the stacks.
well, I mean, you can see that it's counterbalanced.
Yeah,
So, like that middle rock, there's a big section of it hanging out to the right side. So the
yeah,
top
exactly.
has to be a little bit to the left to counterbalance it.
Yeah, got it.
So most of the
Oh,
stuff I do involves some kind of counterbalancing.
okay, okay. Yep. Crazy man, crazy. Like, am I the like how? What is the weirdest reaction you have gotten when someone's mind is blown after watching your art? Like, what is the craziest reaction you have ever witnessed?
Um, just people being very certain that it's not real.
That I know that you have. Even I thought in the beginning, and I was trying to make out because there's this water tipping down the stones, right? So I was like, has he sticked anything? I was trying to decode like, is it real or not? But then I said, yeah, of course it's real.
No,
Um,
I mean, I like to say gravity is the only glue, and that's how
yeah,
the point of the name. But I think it also confuses people too, just because the structures look so unbelievable to a lot of people, because it's something most people haven't seen to that technical degree or whatever. It's a really interesting kind of social experiment because, well, like in university, I studied sociology, so I've always been kind of in tune with like people watching and just kind of like analyzing social situations. And the rock balancing thing is really interesting just in what how humans react to it.
whatever you're doing requires a lot of patience. Has it ever happened to you that that kind of feeling? Okay, I'm trying, and you're like,
I mean, I'm definitely human and I definitely get frustrated.
damn, thank God. I thought like you have like reached that samadhi level where nothing matters to you now.
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm generally quite a sensitive person, but some of the structures are like incredibly difficult, or like they seem impossible until I actually get them. But sometimes I'll be working on something and I just can't get it, and my fingers are freezing because it's in the winter or something, and like just kind of that's just part of the whole kind of almost meditation of it, or like the active meditation is like, yeah, I still get frustrated, but it's not, I don't let it direct the process.
Got it.
Um, like, I guess that's part of just the whole patience of the practice anyway, is just kind of like doing it, and it's okay to get frustrated, but like I just keep going anyway. And like I am much more patient with it now than I was like 5 years ago, which is how I'm able to spend like a week on a single creation, versus just abandoning it. But I mean, it's okay to abandon it too.
Yeah, of course. Whatever comes in the flow, whatever you feel like, in the end, the flow directs.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just kind of like a feeling thing. Like I don't really set any expectations for myself. It's just like what I feel. Like when I feel like it's finished, then it's finished. If I feel like changing an edge, then I'll take it apart and try to balance it on a different edge. It's totally abstract like that. And I don't really confine myself to doing it as like to having it be a certain way. Like it just has to satisfy my kind of arbitrary, abstract, technical aesthetic in a sense.
Michael, what is the most chaotic thing in your day? Like when we if the one is your creation part, which is kind of this meditation process. What is the most chaotic thing in your day?
Probably being at the creek. Or just like being I don't know, just working with nature and being in nature is always an unpredictable thing. Like it's
Hmm.
something I never have control over. So in that sense, like that's the most chaotic part of the day because it's least under control. But that's also what I've grown completely comfortable with, is just like the ability to deal with a chaotic situation, I guess. Like I can still have an open mind dealing with a chaotic situation. I guess chaos needs a little bit of clarity or definition here, but like anything that's not under my control, I guess, would be some form of chaos. And that
Wow.
includes like nature. But like part of doing what I do and just the practice in general is kind of surrendering to that chaos, or like just fully radically accepting it and just kind of flowing with it, or kind of becoming it. So it's not like I like am able to switch it off, or like switch into a place of ignorance or something like that. It's just that I fully accept it, I surrender it to it, and I become part of that flow. Like, I don't really see myself as something separate from my work or my environment or nature or anything. I'm just kind of part of the flow of it.
Damn. Okay, I need to learn a lot from you. Uh, yeah, man. Like damn. Okay, so what is the most shittiest thing you have ever done in your life?
The shittiest thing I've ever done in my life. I have no idea.
Oh,
Well, I almost screwed up a very high profile performance gig in China,
there you go.
but I didn't. But it was that close to messing up and failing.
What was the scenario?
It was a live performance for some kind of vintage furniture dealer or whatever in Shanghai. And I was their headline performance, and there was a lot of money involved, and like it was just one of those things, like I had to do it right. And there was no space to fail. Like I practiced over and over again to try and get it in the least amount of time, but just being like one of the hardest things to do in my work is to do like a live performance on a stage for like an audience, especially if it's like just I guess rich people.
Of course, of
um,
course.
or I don't know. It was just a lot of pressure. It was something that I held a very high standard for myself, and like I also had held a high standard for my client too, and I wanted them to look good for their audience and things, especially because they were having there and they were treating me very well and everything. So it was just like something I wanted to do well, or I needed to do well, just for my own satisfaction, I guess, or my own standards. So yeah, when the actual performance came, it took probably 3 times longer than I anticipated, but I finally got it, and I thought it was gonna fall, and it didn't. But yeah, it was just a very stressful experience.
Yep, that's the chaos you had to deal with an open mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, performing the art on a stage like that is totally out of its natural element.
Oh yeah.
Like all of a sudden it's putting all these like human created confines on the art. Like a gallery isn't a good place for my art. It's like has to be in nature.
Oh god.
So I don't know, to do it on a stage for an audience in a professional sense like that is totally different from me going out to the creek and just kind of like not having any expectations for myself. Because in a live performance, it's all expectation, and there's not any room for error, especially if there's like money involved in things.
Creating just for yourself an art piece is completely different when it comes to creating art for money, which you need to survive.
Hmm.
But that is a part of your life. You have to do it.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah.
most of my, or like all of my practices happened in Boulder here at Boulder Creek, and there's a lot of people traffic that goes by, so I'm pretty used to people watching me do what I do,
Hmm. But without expectations.
without expectations. Like, I mean, I've always been somewhat of a performance artist, but yeah, working along the creek here has really kind of trained me to be okay doing what I do in front of people. I don't know, having the whole live performance thing as a mode of income is kind of nice because it's separate from my work at the creek. Like my work at the creek is just kind of like abstract play for myself, and there's no expectations involved except any that I just place on myself. And that allows that art to be separate from like doing it as a professional gig kind of thing.
Yep. Got it.
So yeah, it allows that barrier between like doing it for money and doing it for myself. And like doing it for money allows me to go back and do like whatever I want for myself in an artistic sense.
So whenever you're doing things in an artistic sense, like sometimes there's this void. Have you felt sometimes like there's this void I need to, I don't know what, but I need to push myself creatively in some different way. I don't know what. Like I just don't know what's the answer, but I know there's this void.
I just kind of sit with it. I don't really do anything about it. Like that's just kind of what I've learned about the creative process through all these years is like you can't force it. It's just something that kind of happens on its own. So if there is kind of like a void that I experience, which usually happens to some degree in between projects I'm working on, I don't know. I don't ever really try to change it. I just kind of like allow it to happen, and I guess keep listening for like the right moment when it feels right to like start doing something again. just accepting the situation, like
Okay.
not allowing myself to get frustrated with some kind of creative block or something like that, to just kind of surrender to it and accept it and understand that it's totally okay to have or experience that. It's also kind of just an understanding of the universe, like that everything changes, including that void or whatever that I experience. Like the only thing I can be certain of is that whatever I'm experiencing now is going to change. Yeah, it's just kind of like that background realization that nothing lasts or everything's temporary, which is kind of part of this whole idea of working with nature, because nature is always changing. It's it's more humans that try to make things permanent. Like
Damn.
the entire art world for humans, or not entire, but like 95% of the art world is about making permanent material things as art to like sell or put in a gallery or something like that. Whereas like this process of land art is like kind of getting into a flow with nature, but also understanding that it's not something that's going to last. It's kind of hopeless to try and make it permanent. But I don't know, I like that about it. It kind of makes the process more romantic in a way. It's like just knowing that it's not going to last forever kind of increases its power in a way, or like its beauty.
Man. Yeah, yeah, you're right, man. Like when if you see things with that perspective, it's actually right. And
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say like, uh, I don't want to say there's anything wrong with making things permanent. It's just kind of like that seems to be a tendency of human beings is to become like attached to these things in a way to like make them permanent. And just like tradition and just kind of everything is like a lot of it is like kind of making things permanent or like trying to make things permanent or like trying to feel in control of things. And I don't know, I guess I could go just like way deep into like human history and the human psyche and everything. Like I imagine hunter gatherers were a lot less concerned with making things permanent. Whereas like
damn, like,
agricultural society and industrial society is like about urbanization and like making things last.
that's part of life. You have to go through it. Like you just can't stop the greed.
Yeah, it's kind of a self-defeating process to just like try to control everything.
Yeah, like it's like to tell what extent you can control things.
I never really try to like to I guess scrutinize what I do so much. It's more like I just do it. Like
I can understand that.
I can't really explain a lot of it myself. It's more kind of this creative flow process that just like comes and goes through me. To some degree, I'm kind of like a puppet of the
Got it.
universe.
Damn. So, like whatever I have understood, maybe I'm wrong, but there's a lot of things which your subconscious does when you start creating, right? Is it anything else except for stone balancing which has helped you in your art subconsciously? Like maybe you're doing something there and just it helped you here.
Probably something that has had a pretty significant effect on just my artistic life in general is the um, experience of like psychedelics,
Okay.
like mushrooms or LSD or things like that. And just having those experiences, kind of integrating those experiences into just my general consciousness opens a lot of doors creatively.
Yep.
Um,
A lot of artists tell me. So you still consume it?
Not near as much as I used to, but like maybe occasionally, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. There it's allowed, na.
Well,
Here
not
it isn't.
fully, but
Oh, okay. So do I need to cut this part or should I keep it?
No, no, it's fine.
Oh damn! Like okay, but there are still some stuffs it's allowed there. The year it's completely banned. There's things are crazy here, but a lot of people tell me that.
Well, I think maybe one of the greatest powers of the psychedelic experience is kind of understanding one's connection with the universe, like not so much as a separate entity, but more kind of like part of everything, or kind of like experiencing this feeling of oneness with everything, especially nature. So I think having that experience and understanding it is very conducive to just kind of a creative life.
Ah man. So last few questions. Like as a stone balancer, what are the problems you go through? Like few people think it's sorcery, few people think it's vandalism.
Yeah, there's definitely a kind of a trend on the internet of people getting like super angry about interfering with nature, but I think that is kind of a stupid thing. um,
Of course.
or I don't know, it strikes me as just very disconnected, very hypocritical, especially coming from people who live like a first world lifestyle. And I don't know, just the idea of interfering with nature is a very kind of disconnected paradigm to start with.
Yeah, it's actually being a hypocrite.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm part of the crowd that believes that interacting with nature in a very direct, kind of intimate way is a necessary ingredient for respecting it and kind of like, or just revering it. I think that's what this stone balancing does, and also just land art in general is like it really cultivates this kind of deeper relationship with nature. That means nature, but also myself, and kind of like realizing that everything's interconnected. So, like a lot of these people online that get kind of angry about it, like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird phenomenon because it only really exists in the online space. Whereas, like, all my interactions in person all around the world are like extremely positive and people are very positively impacted by the work. But I think it's just part of like social media culture in the last few years is like people have a tendency to attack things they don't understand. And I think this practice is one of those things.
Just to ask you, because you brought up this social media thing, there are a lot of other stone balancers that put their artwork on social media. So you have a positive opinion and relationships with everyone, or
No, I'm friendly with most land artists just because we have like some kind of familiarity with each other's lifestyle. But I don't know, like I'm also an art critic, and I have like a lot of strong opinions about like art in general. So I don't know. It's like I said, I'm definitely still human, and it's kind of a self-defeating goal to try and like get along with everybody and to like please everybody. The best thing I can do is just kind of, I guess, be authentic in like just kind of my dealings with the world, maybe. Well, I definitely want to set up some kind of workshop program to just teach the practice for people like all around the world because I think this is a very international kind of art form. I mean, it's pretty much a galactic art form because all you need is rocks and gravity. um, but like, I think the practice is applicable to anyone. Like anyone can learn something from it. And I think it's a very powerful tool for kids, especially, just because it kind of bypasses the analytical mind to some degree and gets people into like a meditative state without specifically trying to. Like, you don't have to mention meditation whatsoever. You just have someone balance some rocks and they'll naturally just kind of get into a meditative flow.
got it. So what do you do except for stone art? Like when you're not doing land art, like when you're not creating anything?
Well, I spend a lot of time taking care of my plants.
So there's no one staying with you at home, or like you don't watch movies, go out, like stuff.
I don't know. Like usually, I'll spend most of the afternoon kind of outside working on stuff, which is quite can be quite mentally and physically exhausting. So sometimes in the evening, I'll just kind of relax as much as possible and maybe watch a movie and go to sleep or whatever. But when I'm at home, I'm usually like either editing photos or editing video or just communicating with clients through email, or sometimes I'll just go out to downtown here and have a few drinks and just kind of hang out.
Oh, finally, there is something like hangout in your life. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I like to party occasionally.
there you go. Okay, the wild side is finally coming out. I'm like, this guy has no wild side at all. So yeah.
Before I was a rock balancer, I was a DJ.
Oh, what?
I
Damn.
used to
Okay, I had
party.
no idea
I
about
used to
this.
party every weekend and stay out all night.
There's a huge shift in your life. Like there's a huge shift in
Well,
your
no, I
life.
mean, it was still gradual, but like when I found rock balancing, it immediately became a passion and hence a priority in my life. So it became a priority to get up early and go outside every day versus partying all night and then sleeping the whole next day. Like, I'm 37 now, and I just like, I think partying really hard was more of a phase I was in my 20s.
Oh, you're 37. So you've got a family?
No, no, no. I mean, I have my mom and sisters, um, but no, I'm just
So you're not gonna get married?
I don't know. Just I'm not really trying to force anything.
Oh, you're lucky, man. You're there. If you would have been in India, you would have kids till now. Like I'm telling you, your mom would have forced you to marry.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm just like not going to settle for anybody.
Okay, dokie. So this is a matrimonial thing which we are like this is exclusive on a podcast. So Michael is not opposed to marrying. He's just not ready to settle. So you guys have a shot at Michael. Okay, dokie. Damn, I had no idea you're a DJ. Damn,
Yeah.
crazy. How did you get so calm? Like I don't think so. Being a DJ, you would have become so calm. Were you so calm since before or after rock balancing?
Um, Good question. I don't know. I've always been kind of like more on the introverted side, so I'm kind of like kind of in my own head a lot. But it's kind of the saying where you have to have patience to learn patience. I don't know. I think psychedelic experience really kind of tuned me into the whole meditative lifestyle, I guess, or just kind of initially channeling that awareness into like really kind of deeper levels. Like my first experience with rock balancing was during a psychedelic experience, and
Oh.
and it was just kind of something that happened, and but I think part of that was being in that state of mind and being so tuned in to my surroundings at the creek, like um, just the sound of the water and just being totally tuned in. I think really kind of opened the floodgate to like finding that passion.
Damn. That's the reason you had no problem spending hours and hours on your first day itself balancing rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I was just hanging out with a friend also, and we were just like looking for rocks. So it just became like a natural thing to put rocks on top of other rocks. And
Yeah. Hope you were not eating those rocks because there's this
no, no, no.
munching period as well.
It was just kind of like a haphazard thing. And then at the end of the day, I realized it was a very therapeutic kind of thing. So I wanted to go do it the next day. and then it just kind of took off from there. But yeah, I guess the initial switch was maybe starting to do it during that psychedelic state of mind, and it had kind of this profound effect or whatever to where I just kind of fell in love with it and just wanted to keep doing it.
Got it.
You said you're a dancer.
Yep.
Um, so I used to do a lot of dance classes, and I've always been a dancer, like just going to parties and stuff and dancing all
Yeah.
crazy. But one of the experiences with dancing that's very similar to just my creative flow in general is kind of getting into that flow state where you're not thinking about dancing and it's almost like you're being danced by the music.
Yep. Got
Like
it.
it's just a pure flow state and your body just kind of moves without you thinking about it. But that's kind of just the creative flow in general that I guess I was trying to describe in the beginning is it just kind of takes you. It's kind of like this thing that flows through you.
So thank you so much, Michael, and I hope that I be the first person to call you in India, and I hope that we do more of these conversation.
Well, where in India are you?
I'm from Mumbai,
Okay.
so you know India's places. Like, have you been here? Like,
No, I haven't been to India. The closest I've been is Nepal. Um,
oh yeah, same
Actually,
Hindi speaking.
I got caught up in a bachelor party of a bunch of Indian men when I was in Nepal.
How was it?
um, well, I was trying to go out to the lake to balance rocks, and they saw me walking by and pulled me into their dinner at this Airbnb that I was at, and they were just trying to like feed me all the spiciest food they could make.
Completely Indian thing. So how was the experience? How did you find it? What was your next reaction? Like, the next day, were you able to get out of the room or were you still in the bathroom?
No, I was able to get out.
Oh, so the spicy food didn't do anything to your gut?
No, it wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't that
Uh,
spicy. I've had spicier, but it was just more of an interesting experience because they were like so friendly and kind of intent on making me have a good time or something.
yeah, they'll be continuously feeding you. Arey, have one more, have one more, have one more.
Yeah.
Like they would have,
Yeah,
see, like
they were very offering and kind of like just they just kept offering more and more food.
yes, and I hope that after this podcast, someone approaches you to marry. Like,
We'll see. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, okay.